morning, everybody. This is Food for Thought, Thoughts If It Were You by Neo Gentrics. It is 3 a.m. and it's good to be back. I had a lot of work issues and schoolwork to do, but hey, that's life. You can't get around it, you can only go through it, and nobody said it was ever fair. So we're going to pick up where we left off with the essential skills. And with this, it's technically a moral, but we're going to go ahead and cover empathy as well. It's an essential skill to have, as well as a moral that most people should have, but unfortunately for some people, they don't even know how to be empathetic, or in layman's terms, show even the simplest of emotions. So we're going to go ahead and cover what empathy is and the types of empathy right here, right now. So, empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is, at its simplest, awareness of the feelings and emotions of other people. It's a key element of emotional intelligence. You know, that thing that links you to other people. It's basically, that link between oneself and others. Because it's, how do I put it? It's how we as individuals understand what others are experiencing as if we were feeling it ourselves, Like, kind of the whole point of this podcast is to understand how the other person feels. As though the title implies, Thoughts If It Were You is basically being empathetic. I'm not going to title my podcast Empathy Towards Others because that's ridiculous and it doesn't make any sense. It goes far beyond sympathy, that's for sure, and which might be considered feelings for someone, whereas empathy is instead feelings with that person. You understand what it's like to be that person without actually being that person. Through your imagination and all. Let's go with this. How about I give you a few definitions just to clarify what I mean? Empathy, using the Chambers English Dictionary, means the power of entering into one's personality and imaginatively experiencing his experiences. Empathy is awareness of others' feelings, needs, and concerns by Daniel Goleman in Working with Emotional Intelligence. Gandhi worded it, I call him religious who understands the suffering of others. And Tim mentions words like this. Empathy is intuitive, but is also something you can work on intellectually. They're not wrong. None of these are wrong. Just the way that they explain it is a little different for much for a lot of people. Daniel Goleman, the author of the book Emotional Intelligence, says that the empathy is basically the ability to understand others emotionally. Okay. He also, however, notes that at a deeper level, it's also about defining, understanding, and reacting to the concerns of and for needs that underlie others' emotional responses and reactions. But keeping that in mind, as Tim noted, empathy is a skill that can be developed. This is also true, as I originally didn't have this ability. I had to learn it as a skill. As the most interpersonal skill, empathizing at some level comes naturally to some people. Ironically, even though I didn't have this ability, it came naturally for me to learn it. So, elements of empathy. We're going to go with Daniel Goleman's identity of it. There are 5 key elements of empathy. 1, understanding others. 2, developing others. 3, having a service orientation. 4, leveraging diversity. And 5, political awareness. Now, I'm going to talk about all 5 in the next coming bits. But this is just to give you a heads up as to what we're going to cover. Okay? And like I said before, we will cover the types of empathy along with that. Okay, and we're back. The first thing that was in that list of 5 things was understanding others. So we're going to pick up with this. This is perhaps what most people understand by empathy. In Goleman's words, sensing others' feelings and perspectives and taking an active interest in their concerns. Those who do this tune into emotional cues. They listen well and they pay attention to nonverbal communication, picking up subtle cues about almost subconsciously. Okay? Showing sensitivity and understanding other perspectives. Note that he mentions that it's more of a non-verbal communication type skill in understanding others. And don't worry, we'll cover listening skills and nonverbal communication later in these podcasts that I cover. An old Indian proverb is never criticize a man until you've walked a mile in his moccasins. In other words, in layman's terms, don't judge a book by its cover. And until you walk a mile in another person's shoes, you don't have a right to judge them. And that's just a loose translation. Next, you're able to help other people based on their understandings of those people's needs and feelings. All these skills which can be developed, okay, but only if you wish to do so. Some people may switch off their emotional antenna to avoid being swamped by the feelings of others. I'm one of those people. I personally seal off my emotions on purpose because I honestly don't want to be overrun with other people's emotions or overrun by mine for the sake of other people trying to dupe me out using their emotions. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, you could sit there and cry, and you probably could have a problem. But unless I see proof that there really is a problem, I don't show any emotional attachment or value whatsoever, nor do I care. This is not to say that I'm not being empathetic. It just means that I'm using wisdom with my emotions rather than just completely listening to them. So, for an example of what I just mentioned earlier, there's been a number of scandals in the National Health Service, especially in the UK, where nurses and doctors have been accused of not caring about patients. It may be that they were so overexposed to patients' needs without suitable support that they shut themselves off for fear of being unable to cope. And to be honest, you can't really blame these people for doing so. The emotional stress that dealing with all these patients has on these people in the hospitals is pretty high. So there's that. We're going to go ahead and cover the second one in this piece too. Developing others. Developing others means acting on their needs and concerns and helping them to develop to their full potential. People with skills in this area usually, and I'm going to list 3 things, reward and praise people for their strength and accomplishments, and provide constructive feedback designed to focus on how to improve. Okay? And don't worry, I will cover on how to give and receive feedback later. Provide mentoring and coaching to help others to develop to their full potential. Okay? Providing stretching assignments that will help their team develop in ways that are usable or feasible for the current situation. Now, with that in mind, there's a lot of ways this can be useful and work out really well. And I will cover these in a later date.